Captain Elias Ward had thought his life would settle into quiet monotony after the wars. Years of battle had taken their toll, scars lined his body and memories etched deep into his mind, but he had survived. Now, on the frontier planet of Lycoris, he lived in a small, isolated cabin on the edge of the wild forests, far from the bustling human colonies. Lycoris was not kind to the weak. Towering trees stretched endlessly, their thick canopies blocking the sun for most of the day, while the nights brought strange noises that made the skin crawl. Humans rarely ventured this far, but Elias had chosen it for its solitude, hoping to find peace away from the memories of gunfire and bloodshed. He spent his days hunting small creatures for food, repairing his cabin, and maintaining his modest hydroponic garden. His only companion was the quiet hum of the forest and the occasional drone delivering messages from nearby colonies. Elias was content, or as content as a man like him could be. Yet, he never quite shook the sense that life had more in store than just survival. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of red and purple, a distant howl echoed through the forest. It was sharp, urgent, and unlike any ordinary animal cry he had heard before. Elias paused, listening carefully. The sound carried a tone of pain, of desperation. His instincts, honed by years of war, told him to investigate, even as a small voice whispered caution. By the time he reached the source, hidden among the thick undergrowth, he found a creature unlike anything he had seen. It was humanoid in shape but covered in silver-gray fur, tall and strong, with piercing amber eyes that glowed faintly even in the dim light. Its ears were pointed, and its face held the elegance of a wolf, but with intelligence that radiated through its gaze. The creature was wounded, bleeding heavily from a deep gash across its shoulder. Despite the pain, it tried to rise, but collapsed with a shudder. Elias's first reaction was caution. Most strangers in these forests were dangerous predators, raiders, or something worse, but the creature's condition left no room for hesitation. He ran forward, carefully examining the wound. "Hey. Stay still," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's eyes widened at his words, and a low, cautious growl escaped its throat. Elias noted its sharp teeth but did not flinch. "You're hurt. I can help." With surprising strength despite its injuries, the creature tried to push him away, but Elias held firm. Using strips of cloth torn from his own shirt, he bandaged the wound as best he could. The creature hissed and twitched, but eventually, exhaustion overcame resistance. Elias guided it to his cabin, creating a makeshift stretcher from branches and blankets. By the time they arrived, the creature was barely conscious, its breathing shallow and ragged. Inside the cabin, Elias set it down gently on the floor near the fire. The warmth seemed to ease some of the pain, though the wound needed more than simple bandages. He realized that he had only one option. His blood, rich with antibodies from years of surviving infections and injuries, might help stabilize the creature until proper medical treatment could be arranged. "This is going to hurt a little," Elias said softly, though he doubted the creature understood him fully. Still, it did not resist as he made a small cut on his arm and let the blood drip onto the wound. Almost immediately, the creature shivered, its breathing becoming steadier. Its amber eyes, still wary, met his. And Elias felt a strange connection. Something beyond understanding. It was as if the creature recognized him not just as a human but as an ally, someone who had risked himself without question. Hours passed. Elias worked tirelessly, cleaning the wound, applying herbal salves he had learned to prepare during his years on Lycoris, and watching over the creature. Slowly, it regained consciousness, its eyes focused on him fully for the first time, and Elias felt an unexpected warmth spread through him. The creature, he now understood, was intelligent. It nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging his help. By dawn, the wound had stabilized, and the creature could stand with Elias's support. It did not speak, not in words, but a series of low growls and gestures conveyed its gratitude. Elias had no idea what its language was, yet he understood the meaning. The bond was formed, not through words, but through courage, trust, and a willingness to help without expectation. As the sun rose higher, painting the forest in golden light, the creature finally revealed its identity. Through gestures, Elias learned it was Lyria, daughter of the Wolf Queen, leader of a powerful and secretive pack that lived deep within the Lycoris forests. The pack had long avoided humans, wary of their unpredictable nature. But Lyria had been caught in a violent skirmish with a rival group that sought to take control of her territory. Her life had hung in the balance, and Elias's quick action had saved her. Word of Elias's deed spread quickly, though he did not know it. In the forests, every action carried meaning, and the wolf pack sensed that something extraordinary had occurred. A human had given his blood to their royal bloodline, a gesture so rare and selfless that it demanded respect. Even the elders, cautious and reserved, felt the shift. The forest whispered of the human who had saved Lyria, and some spoke of destiny, of a bond that could change the course of history. Elias, oblivious to the larger consequences, focused on helping Lyria recover. Over the next days, he prepared food, reinforced her wound care, and shared stories of human life, though she could not speak his language. Through these interactions, an unspoken understanding grew between them. Elias learned to read her gestures and expressions, and she began to trust him completely. During one quiet evening, as the stars appeared over the dense forest canopy, Lyria gestured toward the horizon, and then to the deeper forest. Elias understood she wanted him to meet her pack, to face the elders who would decide his fate. He hesitated. Humans were not always welcomed in the wolf territories, and he had no idea what awaited him. Yet, he could not abandon her now. He had given his blood, his trust, and his effort. If this was the next step, he would take it. The following morning, Elias followed Lyria into the forest. Her movements were graceful and sure, though she sometimes faltered slightly, her injury still tender. As they ventured deeper, the forest seemed alive with awareness. Trees whispering in the wind, shadows shifting in ways that suggested watchful eyes. Elias realized the wolf pack was everywhere, observing, judging, and awaiting his arrival. At the edge of a clearing, the heart of the pack appeared, a massive circle of stones arranged around a central fire pit, the ground worn from generations of ceremonies. Lyria guided him to the center, and one by one, the elders emerged from the shadows. They were imposing, larger than any wolf Elias had imagined, their fur thick, eyes sharp, and expressions unreadable. For a moment, he felt the weight of centuries of tradition pressing down on him. The elders circled him, sniffing, observing, evaluating. Lyria stepped forward, placing herself between Elias and the council. Her stance was protective yet proud, as if declaring to the elders that he had proven himself worthy. One of the elders, older than the rest, stepped closer, his amber eyes piercing into Elias's soul. Through growls, gestures, and a deep resonance, Elias could feel more than hear. The elder asked him why he had helped their princess. Elias, unsure if they would understand, spoke simply, "Because it was the right thing to do. No one should suffer alone. No one deserves to die when I can help." He met each elder's gaze, unwavering, feeling a strange warmth spreading from Lyria. As if her life force supported his words, the elders murmured among themselves. It was unusual for a human to show such courage and empathy, qualities the wolf pack valued above all else. Though they could not speak human language, their understanding transcended words. Slowly, they began to circle away, acknowledging that this man was unlike any other they had encountered. Elias did not know it yet, but he had planted a seed of respect and trust that would grow into something far greater than himself. As night fell, Elias and Lyria sat near the fire, watching the stars. The forest was quiet now, the earlier tension replaced by a sense of anticipation. Elias felt a strange connection to this world, a feeling he had not experienced since the war. He realized that this was only the beginning, that his actions had opened a door to a world he had never imagined, a world where humans and wolves could be allies, perhaps even family. For the first time in years, Elias smiled. The future was uncertain, Yes, but it was also full of possibilities. And as he looked at Lyria, recovering but still fierce, he knew one thing for certain. Life on Lycaris would never be ordinary again. The forest of Lycaris was alive in ways that Elias had never truly appreciated. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, seemed deliberate, a message from the hidden eyes that watched him. Now, as he followed Lyria deeper into the heart of the pack, he understood that this world was far more intricate than any human colony he had ever known. The wolf pack had rules, rituals, and a hierarchy that demanded respect. And for Elias, learning these ways was as essential as breathing. Lyria moved with grace, though her steps were cautious. Her injury was healing, but she still leaned on him for support. Elias didn't mind. The rhythm of walking beside her, observing her instincts and reactions, gave him insight into the wolves' perspective. Every sound, every movement, had meaning. They approached a clearing, where dozens of wolves waited, their eyes glowing softly in the filtered sunlight. The elders had called a gathering, and the air was thick with anticipation. Elias felt a tension he had never known. Unlike the human world, where authority was often proven with words or force, the pack measured worth by courage, intelligence, and respect for life. He was an outsider, a human yet here. He had already demonstrated some of these qualities by saving Lyria. Still, he could sense the skepticism in the elder wolves' gazes. Trust was not given lightly, even to those who performed heroic deeds. The largest of the elders stepped forward. His fur was silvered with age, and his amber eyes held centuries of wisdom. He circled Elias slowly, sniffing, observing every detail. Then, with a low, guttural sound, he issued a challenge. Elias did not understand the words, but the tone was clear. The human must prove himself. Lyria stepped forward, her gaze firm. She pressed a hand lightly on Elias's shoulder, a gesture that spoke of confidence and trust. She believed in him, and that alone strengthened his resolve. He straightened his back, met the elder's gaze, and nodded slightly. This was his chance to show that humanity was not just fragile, clumsy, or violent, but capable of honor and courage. The first challenge was a test of awareness and intuition. The wolves led Elias through a dense section of forest filled with obstacles. Hidden pits, snaring vines, and sudden drops. His task was to reach a marked stone at the far end without triggering any traps. Every step required careful observation and quick thinking. Elias moved cautiously, remembering his military training, scanning the terrain, and anticipating danger. At one point, a vine snapped under his foot, sending a small rock tumbling down a slope. He froze, expecting disapproval. But instead, a low hum of acknowledgement came from the observing wolves. They recognized skill, even in minor victories. Next came the test of courage. The elders led Elias and Lyria to a cliffside, where the wind howled fiercely. Far below, the forest stretched endlessly, and perched along the edge were predators from the deep woods, creatures with sharp claws and eyes that glinted with hunger. Elias was instructed to retrieve a token from a nest precariously balanced on a ledge. The path was narrow, slippery, and treacherous. His heart pounded, but fear did not rule him. He moved deliberately, recalling strategies from years of combat. When a large bird swooped toward him, he didn't strike. Instead, he remained calm, shifting his weight, showing respect for life even in danger. The wolves watched closely, and when he returned safely with the token, their murmurs carried admiration. The final test was one of empathy and leadership. The wolves presented a scenario. A young wolf had been separated from its family and was lost in dangerous terrain. Elias was asked to guide it back without causing panic or harm. At first, he felt uncertain. Humans were not accustomed to reading animal expressions so finely. But Lyria whispered a series of gestures and sounds that conveyed the pack's methods. Elias adjusted his approach, speaking softly, moving slowly, and allowing the young wolf to lead part of the way. By the time he reunited the wolf with its family, He had not only passed the test but had impressed the elders with his patience and understanding. By the end of the day, Elias was exhausted, yet there was a sense of accomplishment he had not felt in years. The elders gathered, communicating through subtle growls, movements, and expressions, deliberating over his fate. Lyria stood proudly beside him, her trust unwavering. Finally, the oldest elder approached, his gaze lingering on Elias. He circled once, then nodded. The decision was made. Elias would be welcomed into the territory as an ally, though full acceptance by the entire pack would require more time and continued proof of loyalty. Over the following weeks, Elias immersed himself in the life of the pack. He learned their language of growls, gestures, and subtle expressions. He trained with them, combining human ingenuity with their natural abilities. He devised strategies to improve hunting efficiency, taught simple mechanical tricks to help track prey, and introduced methods for building shelters that could withstand storms. The wolves were initially cautious, but gradually, they began to respect his insights. Elias also learned more about Lyria. She was not just the daughter of the Wolf Queen, but a fierce warrior in her own right. Intelligent, resourceful, and deeply connected to her pack. They communicated with a mix of gestures, shared glances, and slow growls that conveyed complex meanings. Though he did not fully understand her language, he began to sense her moods, fears, and thoughts. A deep bond formed between them, one built on trust, mutual respect, and shared experiences. However, not all members of the pack were immediately welcoming. Some younger wolves, skeptical of a human's presence, challenged him in small ways, blocking paths, testing his reaction, and occasionally retreating to observe from a distance. Elias did not respond with anger. Instead, he met their challenges calmly, demonstrating strength, intelligence, and fairness. Slowly, even the skeptics began to soften, seeing that he was not a threat but a protector. One morning, while scouting the outer borders of the territory with Lyria, Elias noticed signs of intrusion footprints that did not belong to the pack and faint traces of alien technology. He reported this to the elders, who responded with cautious concern. The wolf pack had always defended its lands fiercely, but the presence of humans had brought new threats. Elias proposed a patrol system, combining wolf stealth with human strategy. Lyria and the elders approved, recognizing the value of his knowledge. The patrols revealed more about the threat. A rival alien group had begun encroaching on the territory, seeking resources and challenging the wolf pack's dominance. The elders were wise and experienced, but Elias's human perspective added a new dimension to their defense plans. He suggested setting traps, scouting routes, and establishing early warning systems using both natural and technological means. The wolves observed, adapted, and soon, the forest was a network of defenses that none could breach without being detected. Despite these challenges, life within the pack brought moments of warmth and camaraderie. Elias shared stories of human life, the wars he had fought, and the lessons he had learned. The younger wolves listened with fascination, sometimes mimicking his gestures or expressions in curiosity. Lyria laughed softly at his stories, her growls of amusement blending with Elias's chuckles. They trained together, hunted together, and slowly, the human and wolf communities began to feel the beginnings of unity. One evening, under a sky ablaze with stars, the elders summoned Elias and Lyria to the heart of the pack. The council recognized that his contributions were exceptional. Not only had he passed the tests of courage, empathy, and awareness, but he had also demonstrated wisdom, patience, and the ability to see beyond immediate dangers. They conveyed, through a series of deep, resonant growls and gestures, that his presence had changed the dynamics of the pack. The bond formed by his actions was rare, so rare that some elders whispered it could alter the future of both humans and wolves on Lycoris. Elias listened, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He had come to Lycoris seeking peace, but peace was not the reward. The reward was understanding, trust, and the chance to prove that humanity's greatest strength lay in its choices, courage, and compassion. He realized that his actions, small as they might seem, had begun to build bridges between two species that had once viewed each other with suspicion. Lyria stepped closer, placing a gentle paw on his arm. Elias looked at her, seeing the gratitude, pride, and unspoken bond in her amber eyes. Together, they had faced skepticism, learned a new culture, and confronted the first hints of danger that threatened the pack. Yet, they had done more than survive. They had begun to earn respect, unity, and the possibility of a shared future. As the night deepened, the forest hummed with quiet energy. The pack had accepted Elias as an ally, but he understood that full integration would require continued courage, wisdom, and unwavering loyalty. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges both natural and alien. Yet he felt ready. For the first time in a long while, he understood that heroism was not defined solely by war or battle, but by the choices one made when faced with the lives of others. The bond with Lyria had become more than survival. It was the beginning of trust, alliance, and something deeper that neither species fully understood. Elias knew that their journey together was only beginning. The forest was vast, the pack formidable, and the galaxy beyond filled with unknown dangers. But for now, he was where he belonged, learning, growing, and earning a place among a people who valued courage, honor, and heart above all. And as Elias gazed at the silver glow of the moon over the treetops, he realized that life on Lycoris was no longer about hiding from his past or seeking solitude. It was about forging bonds, proving worth, and discovering that even in a world so different from his own, humanity could shine brightly. The warning signs had been subtle at first. A snapped branch here, a strange footprint there, but Elias knew better than to ignore them. The aliens moving through the forest were organized and intelligent, far more dangerous than any ordinary predator. They were not merely scavengers. They were hunters, efficient and ruthless. Over the past weeks, Elias had worked with the pack to strengthen defenses, setting traps, monitoring patrol routes, and teaching the wolves to anticipate movements in ways that combined instinct with human strategy. Yet now, it seemed their presence was no longer just a threat on the edge. It was advancing toward the heart of the pack itself. Elias and Lyria stood atop a rocky ridge, overlooking the forest. The sun was low, casting long shadows that danced across the terrain. "They're close," Elias said, his voice low, but firm. Lyria's ears twitched, and her tail flicked in agreement. She had learned to read the subtle signals of the forest, just as he had learned to read her gestures. Together, they made an unlikely but effective team. A human and a wolf united by trust, courage, and necessity. The elders had gathered to discuss the situation. Their growls and movements carried urgency and concern, but Elias could see that they were still uncertain about human methods. He addressed them calmly, showing maps of the area, marking points where intrusions had occurred, and proposing strategies for defense. The wolves circled him, observing, listening, evaluating. He suggested a combination of traps, lookout posts, and coordinated patrols that would allow the pack to respond quickly to any attack. Lyria translated in her way, using gestures and sounds to ensure the elders understood his plans. Slowly, the council agreed. The trust he had earned over weeks of careful actions now gave him authority. The elders were willing to follow his guidance because they recognized skill, wisdom, and loyalty in his choices. Preparation consumed the next days. The forest became a network of hidden pitfalls, camouflaged snares, and strategically placed obstacles. Elias worked tirelessly alongside the wolves, moving branches, digging shallow traps, and ensuring the defenses were subtle enough to remain unseen but effective. The younger wolves trained under his supervision, learning to move silently, observe carefully, and strike with precision. Elias saw their potential and nurtured it, reminding himself that leadership was not just about giving orders. It was about teaching, inspiring, and protecting. Then, the first real encounter came. Scouts reported a small group of aliens attempting to bypass the traps, moving cautiously through the forest. Elias and a squad of elite wolves intercepted them, He moved with confidence, using shadows and terrain to his advantage. The wolves flanked him, eyes glowing in the twilight, muscles coiled for action. When the aliens were caught in the snares, they struggled. But the pack's training ensured they were contained, without unnecessary harm. Elias approached carefully, observing their technology and noting weaknesses that could be exploited in future encounters. The victory was small but significant. The pack's morale soared, and even the most skeptical wolves began to see Elias as more than an outsider. Lyria ran beside him, her laughter and growls blending in a rhythm that felt natural to both of them. For the first time, Elias felt like he truly belonged in this world, not just as a visitor, but as someone who could make a difference. Yet the threat was far from over. The aliens were intelligent and would learn from their mistakes. Over the next days, reconnaissance revealed that a larger force was moving toward the heart of the pack. It was no longer a matter of skirmishes or isolated attacks, it was a full-scale assault. The elders convened, and Elias stood before them once more. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. This time, the challenge was not a test of courage or empathy. It was a battle for survival. Elias devised a plan. He combined human tactics with the wolves' natural abilities, creating a strategy that leveraged stealth, speed, and intelligence. The pack would divide into groups, each with a specific role. Some would lead the aliens into traps, others would flank from hidden positions, and the elite warriors would protect the heart of the pack directly. Elias mapped it all out, explaining each step to Lyria, who in turn communicated it to the rest of the pack. The night before the attack, the forest was eerily quiet. Elias and Lyria walked together through the territory, checking traps and patrol points. The air was tense, filled with anticipation. Elias felt a mixture of fear and determination. He knew that failure was not an option, not for him, not for the wolves who had come to trust him. Lyria walked beside him, her presence a constant reassurance. They had come this far together, and now they would face the greatest test of all. Dawn broke, and the first signs of the alien advance appeared. Shadows moved among the trees, faint mechanical sounds echoing through the forest. Elias signaled the pack, and they moved into position with precision. The aliens fell into the traps, their movements restricted by pitfalls and nets hidden under foliage. The pack attacked with agility and speed, striking where the humans had set up defenses. Elias led from the front, coordinating the movements with hand signals, whistles, and gestures. The battle was intense. The aliens were strong and persistent, but the combination of human strategy and lupine skill proved overwhelming. Elias dodged, ducked, and directed the pack with calculated movements. Lyria fought beside him, her claws and strength complemented by Elias's quick thinking. They moved as one, each action reinforcing the other. The bond forged through trust and shared purpose became a force stronger than either species alone. Several times, Elias found himself in direct confrontation with alien commanders. His human instincts, honed from years of war, allowed him to anticipate attacks and counter effectively. He guided the wolves to positions that amplified their natural advantages, using terrain, shadows, and timing to outmaneuver the enemies. The elders observed from safe positions, recognizing that this human had become a leader, not by birthright, but by merit, courage, and wisdom. Hours passed like minutes. By mid-afternoon, the battle began to turn in favor of the pack. The aliens, disoriented and trapped in ways they could not predict, started retreating. The wolves pursued, ensuring that the territory was secure and that the invaders would not return easily. Elias and Lyria stood together on a small rise, watching as the forest returned to quiet. The pack emerged around them, their expressions a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and pride. The elders approached, moving slowly and deliberately. Their eyes, once skeptical, now shone with respect. Through gestures, growls, and expressions, they conveyed their recognition of Elias's leadership and bravery. Lyria stepped forward, her gaze filled with pride and gratitude. The bond between human and wolf had been tested in the crucible of battle and had proven unbreakable. Elias looked around at the forest he now called home. The heart of the pack was safe, thanks to cooperation, strategy, and trust. The wolves had followed him, and together they had defended their territory. The young wolves who had once doubted him now stood taller, their eyes reflecting admiration and loyalty. Even the elders, who had questioned his presence, now acknowledged that humanity's strength was not just in technology or firepower, but in courage, empathy, and the choices one made under pressure. That night, the forest echoed with celebration. The wolves howled in triumph, a sound that resonated across the treetops and valleys. Elias sat beside Lyria, feeling the warmth of victory and the depth of connection. He realized that this battle, while significant, was only the beginning. Challenges would continue to come, from alien forces or from natural threats within the forest. But he was ready. He had earned the trust of the pack, and in return, they had become more than allies, they were family. As the stars emerged over Lycoris, Elias reflected on how far he had come, from a quiet, solitary life on the edge of the forest to leading the pack in defense of their home. His journey had been unexpected, dangerous, and rewarding. The bond with Lyria, strengthened by shared trials, had become a source of guidance, strength, and inspiration. Together, they had shown that humans and wolves could achieve what neither could accomplish alone. Elias understood now that leadership was not about dominance or control. It was about understanding, collaboration, and the willingness to act selflessly when others depended on you. The aliens had tested him, the pack had tested him, and through it all, he had proven himself not as a human intruder, but as a vital part of this community. The forest settled into quiet once more, but the sense of vigilance remained. The pack knew that threats would come again, and Elias knew that he would have to be ready. Yet, he felt a sense of purpose he had never known. He had discovered that humanity's greatest strength lay not in weapons or technology, but in courage, loyalty, and heart. And for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. As he watched Lyria patrol the perimeter with confidence and precision, Elias realized that the Wolf Queen's daughter had not only survived but thrived. Their partnership had saved the heart of the pack, and together they had set the foundation for a new era of unity and strength. The forest, once a place of isolation, was now a realm of potential, challenge, and hope. Elias's thoughts wandered to the future. He knew that more dangers would arrive, that the galaxy beyond Lycoris held uncertainties and threats. But he also knew that with trust, courage, and wisdom, the pack and humanity could overcome anything, and in that knowledge, he found a profound sense of belonging. He was no longer a solitary veteran. He was a leader, a protector, and a bridge between species. The night deepened, and the forest whispered around him. He and Lyria sat together, watching the stars and listening to the sounds of the pack. Elias understood that his journey was far from over, but he also understood that he had found a purpose that transcended fear, danger, and doubt. He had become more than a human. He had become a part of something larger, something enduring. And in the quiet of the forest, as the wolves settled into their dens and the stars shone brightly above, Elias felt a sense of peace. The battle was won, the pack was safe, and the bond he had forged with Lyria and her people was unbreakable. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also filled with promise, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly ready to face it. The forest of Lycoris had never been quieter. The battle had passed, and the aliens had retreated, leaving only the wind rustling through the trees and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Yet the peace was not empty. It carried the weight of survival, courage, and trust earned through struggle. Elias stood near the heart of the pack, observing the wolves as they moved through their territory with a newfound confidence. The young wolves had grown bolder, the elders' gazes carried respect, and Lyria walked beside him with a pride that was both quiet and deep. The elders had summoned a special gathering that evening, Elias could feel the tension and anticipation in the air. This was not merely a meeting, it was a ceremony of acknowledgement, a recognition of the courage, wisdom, and leadership he had displayed. The heart of the pack glowed softly in the light of a ceremonial fire, and the circle of stones, worn smooth over generations, seemed to hum with the energy of countless ceremonies past. Elias felt the weight of history pressing gently on him, but he also felt a sense of readiness. He had faced challenges he could never have imagined, and had proven himself in the eyes of the pack. One by one, the elders approached. Their movements were deliberate, their amber eyes studying him closely. Elias met each gaze with calmness, showing neither fear nor arrogance. They communicated not with words, but through gestures, growls, and expressions, a language he had come to understand deeply. Lyria stood beside him, her presence a bridge between the human and wolf worlds. She moved with grace, and her gestures conveyed her support and trust. Elias realized how much she had taught him, how much he had learned from her, and how strong their bond had become. The oldest elder stepped forward, circling Elias with deliberate slowness. The wolf's gaze was piercing, filled with a lifetime of wisdom. For a long moment, there was silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the soft wind through the trees. Then, with a series of low growls and careful gestures, the elder conveyed what Elias had been waiting for: recognition, honor, and a title unlike any he had ever imagined. The pack had decided that he would not merely be an ally or a protector. He would be king of the pack, a leader not by birthright, but by merit, courage, and unwavering loyalty. Elias felt a mixture of surprise and humility. He had never sought leadership, never desired authority. Yet he understood the significance. To lead this pack was to protect them, to guide them, and to ensure that the bond between humans and wolves remained strong. Lyria's amber eyes met his, filled with pride and affection. She stepped forward, bowing her head slightly. Acknowledging the decision of the elders, the young wolves approached as well, their expressions bright with admiration, while the older wolves nodded slowly, a quiet sign of approval. The ceremony continued with rituals that Elias had come to respect and understand. The elders moved through the circle, their paws touching the ground in deliberate patterns, their growls rising and falling in a rhythm that resonated deep within the forest. Elias followed their guidance, placing his hands where they instructed, mirroring their gestures, feeling the energy of the pack flow through him. He realized that leadership was more than strategy or strength. It was connection, empathy, and the ability to inspire trust and unity. After the formal rituals, Elias and Lyria stood together before the pack. He spoke, not in words they could fully understand, but in gestures and expressions that conveyed his commitment. He promised to protect the forest, guide the pack with wisdom, and honor the trust they had placed in him. Lyria's tail flicked in approval, and the pack responded with a chorus of howls and growls, a sound that echoed through the forest like a wave of energy. It was a declaration of unity, respect, and hope. The days that followed were filled with activity. Elias took on his role seriously, balancing leadership with learning. He patrolled the boundaries of the territory, coordinated hunts, and worked with the elders to develop strategies for defense and survival. Lyria remained by his side, her guidance invaluable as he navigated the complex social and cultural dynamics of the pack. Together, they strengthened bonds, not only within the wolf community but also between humans and wolves. Elias introduced small innovations, methods for storing food safely, strategies for tracking intruders, and techniques to strengthen cooperation during hunts. The pack adapted quickly, blending human ingenuity with natural instincts. The younger wolves thrived under his guidance, learning to move with stealth, think strategically, and act with precision. The elders observed, offering advice and corrections, but ultimately trusting his judgment. Elias had become a leader not by command, but by example. One afternoon, a patrol reported signs of another potential threat, a group of alien scouts approaching the borders of the territory. Elias gathered the pack, analyzing the situation carefully. He devised a strategy that relied on the wolves' agility, senses, and knowledge of the terrain, combined with his understanding of tactics and anticipation of enemy behavior. The operation was a success, capturing the scouts without unnecessary conflict and reinforcing the pack's confidence in his leadership. Even as challenges arose, Elias found moments of peace. He walked through the forest with Lyria, observing the life around them, the small creatures, the flowing streams, and the trees that had stood for centuries. He reflected on how far he had come, from a solitary human seeking refuge to a respected leader of a powerful pack. The bond with Lyria had grown deeper, rooted in trust, shared experiences, and mutual respect. Together, they were a symbol of unity, courage, and possibility. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of gold and violet, the pack gathered once more at the heart of the pack. The elders had called a feast, a celebration of survival, strength, and leadership. Wolves of all ages moved gracefully through the clearing, their eyes bright with anticipation. Elias observed quietly, feeling a sense of belonging that he had never known before. The humans who had remained on Lycoris watched with curiosity, learning from the wolves' ways and witnessing the bond between species. During the feast, Lyria approached Elias with a gesture of acknowledgement, pressing her head gently against his shoulder. Elias understood the meaning. It was trust, respect, and shared pride. He responded with a nod and a gentle pat, feeling a warmth that went beyond friendship or alliance. The pack recognized their unity, and in that recognition, Elias felt the true weight of leadership. The responsibility to protect, guide, and inspire those who depended on him. The night grew deep, and the stars shone brightly over the forest. Elias stood at the edge of the clearing, looking out over the territory he now led. The heart of the pack was secure. The wolves were loyal and confident, and the future, though uncertain, seemed full of promise. He realized that life was no longer about solitude or mere survival. It was about connection, courage, and the ability to make choices that shaped the destiny of others. The Wolf Queen approached him, moving with grace despite her age. She circled him slowly, her amber eyes studying him with quiet intensity. Then, with a series of gestures and growls, she conveyed her acknowledgement and blessing. Elias bowed slightly in respect, understanding the honor being given. He had not sought recognition, yet he had earned it, not through dominance or force, but through courage, empathy, and steadfast action. As the forest settled into quiet once more, Elias reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a wounded veteran living in solitude to a respected leader of a sentient wolf pack, he had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty. He had forged bonds that transcended species, learned the ways of a world far different from his own, and discovered that heroism was not measured by the battles one fought, but by the choices one made when others depended on them. The next morning, the pack moved through their territory with renewed purpose. Elias led patrols, coordinated hunting strategies, and worked with the elders to ensure the forest remained safe. Lyria ran beside him, her movements effortless and precise. Together, they were a symbol of unity, courage, and resilience. The younger wolves followed eagerly, learning from his actions and absorbing the lessons of leadership, strategy, and empathy. Elias knew that challenges would continue to arise. The galaxy beyond Lycoris was vast and unpredictable, filled with dangers that neither humans nor wolves could face alone. Yet he felt ready. He had earned the trust of the pack, demonstrated his courage, and proven his wisdom. He had discovered that leadership was not about power alone, but about responsibility, understanding, and the willingness to act selflessly. As night fell over the forest, Elias and Lyria sat together on a rocky outcrop, overlooking the heart of the pack. The fire from the ceremonial site cast a warm glow over the trees, and the sounds of the pack moving through the forest echoed in the distance. Elias felt a deep sense of peace. He had found his place, not by chance, but through actions, trust, and unwavering commitment. He was no longer a solitary human. He was a leader, a protector, and a bridge between worlds. In the quiet of the night, Elias realized that this was only the beginning. He and Lyria would continue to strengthen the bond between humans and wolves, face challenges that tested their courage, and build a future that honored both species. The forest of Lycoris had become more than a home. It had become a realm of possibility, unity, and hope. And as the stars shone brightly above, Elias knew that the choices he made, the courage he displayed, and the bonds he forged would shape the destiny of the pack, the forest, and perhaps even humanity itself. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, not just surviving, but leading, protecting, and creating a future worth fighting for. The heart of the pack was secure, the wolves were loyal, and Elias Ward, the human veteran who had donated his blood to save the Wolf Queen's daughter, had earned a place not just in their hearts, but in their history. The pack called him king. And he accepted not with pride, but with humility, knowing that true leadership was measured not by title, but by the courage, compassion, and wisdom one brought to every choice. Lycoris stretched endlessly beyond the clearing, a world of forests, rivers, and mountains, waiting to be protected, explored, and understood. And Elias, alongside Lyria and the pack, would face it all, not as an outsider, but as a king, a guardian, and a part of something far greater than himself.